live on the internet, live streaming to hundreds of people right now. Welcome to the second episode of the Offstage podcast.
Sorry.
Oh, we're gonna do like a harmony
planned.
there.
That wasn't planned.
Oh, nice. I like it. So this is our first actual real episode. Our first episode was a little bit kind of freeform, just introducing ourselves and all that kind of stuff, talking about what we wanted to do with the podcast itself and all that. For this one, we actually do have a topic, and we're going to be talking about some stuff that we think is pretty interesting. You want to tell us a little bit about what we're going to be talking about today?
Oh, it's easy. Social media.
Oh, what is social media?
What is social media?
Yeah.
Oh my God. How much time do you have?
This is going to be a 3-hour podcast. What is a smartphone that you talk about? Basically, the topic today is going to be social media related to like how artists use it, strategies and that kind of stuff. And, you know, social media is one of those topics that you hear about a lot. And, you know, you kind of hear the same advice over and over and over. And it's kind of crappy, like, oh, you got to use hashtags. Oh, you got to be there all the time. But it's more about like getting actual strategy and actual what things you should be looking for and how you should get involved with social media as well. And also I have a pretty funny story that I'll share later on the podcast. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it'll be interesting. So without further ado, this is episode 1 of the Offstage podcast.
Let's back it up. How are you, Martin?
I'm doing pretty well today. It's Friday night. Mm-hmm. We're recording on a Friday night.
Yep. We have no life.
Yeah. It's been a short week this week because of not Labor Day. Oh, my bad. Family Day on Monday.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
That was this week.
Yeah, so it's been a short week, which feels amazing. How are you doing?
I'm awesome.
Yeah?
I'm in a good mood.
Right. It feels good to be in a good mood.
Yeah.
I think it's just the fact that it is Friday already puts me in a good mood.
Yeah, that definitely helps. Last time it was like a Thursday night and I had a really busy day.
Yeah?
The next day, so I was not in a good mood.
Oh, gosh. Well, I'm glad you are in a good mood on this one because it's going to get very like out there and a lot of talking. So that's great. Mm-hmm. So you actually picked the topic for this first episode.
I did.
Why did you pick social media?
I don't know if you noticed what I did there when I backed up and said, hey, how are you? Uh-huh. I was being social with you.
Oh.
So a lot of people, when they look at social media, completely forget about the social part.
Yeah, it's funny. You didn't start the conversation being like, listen to my band.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is what I usually see in social media with, well, bands.
Yeah, pretty much. They're just talking at everyone. Oh, and sorry, I'm sidetracked again. One thing that I have to mention is that this time Martin will not sound like he's speaking from a tin box because we have a fancy second microphone.
Yeah, we've worked out some technical kinks from the same first recording.
Yeah.
We're basically using one microphone at the same time for both of us. But now each of us has their own mic. It's pretty fancy. We're getting fancy up here in the studio.
Yeah,
the studio, which is totally not my living room.
Studio 412.
This is the same studio where, all those Beatle records were recorded and whatever. No big deal.
I'm going to test out this XLR. This is the longest XLR cord in the world. Hold on.
You look like the...
Guys,
oh my God.
I'm
Can you actually
away.
go all the way to the washroom?
I'm walking away. Washroom. I'm going outside.
Vanessa is currently leaving the apartment because she can record from... Oh my God, careful. You're going to pull my audio card on the floor. Okay, come back.
I'm in the hallway. Oh, you can even
all
hear
way
the
to
echo.
hallway. There's a lot of echo there.
Huge echo. Okay, that was fun.
Echo.
So when Martin and I get into an argument, I'm
you can
leaving.
just run away.
I'm going to leave the apartment, but
And you can
still
keep
be able to
talking
talk.
without interruptions as you leave. And I'm just stuck here being like, oh, goddamn.
That was fun. I just had to test that out. Oh my God. I could have gone, dude, I could have gone into the elevator. Look at how much more space.
You look like, have you ever seen, look at the guy from Taking Back Sunday, is it?
No.
That he does all these microphone tricks and shit because he has a really long cable. Like he flips the microphone, throws him up in the air, catches it up in the air.
Oh,
really
that's
that
cute.
guy.
Yeah, I've seen that before. And I always look at the microphone like, oh God, I really hope that they own that. Don't mess with the studio gear.
That reminds me of
Or the venue gear.
That reminds me of one time that I went karaoke for an office party, a Christmas office party, and it's some random ass bar, West End, Toronto, We're all drinking. Everyone's drunk. We're doing Satan Zoe by Weezer. And,
Of course.
that's the banger. Everyone in the bar is singing along, and it's the middle of the bridge or something. And accidentally, at the end of the song, I try to put the mic back on the stand and I drop it by accident, right? And then the DJ running the booth, he's like, "That's a $500 microphone. What the fuck?" And I'm like, "Why are you using a $500 microphone for karaoke at a bar?"
I was going to say, like, even like proper venues
Right?
use $200 mics.
Right? It's like, I don't know okay, I'm sorry, but also, why? Like, that everyone's drunk. And then at one point I saw him also almost like kill like these 3 girls because they were like, of course, super drunk as well. And they were singing like, I don't know, like some fucking like Spice Girls or something. And they were banging 2 microphones against each other.
Oh my God.
Like trying to go like follow the beat or something. And yeah, that was pretty bad. Anyway, that's my little rant about microphones. Don't use expensive microphones in cheap venues.
Oh, it's awesome.
Right? So, circling back to social media, you were saying how you were being social instead of trying to sell me music.
Exactly. That's the thing is people always forget about the social part of social media. You're not talking at people. Like this is the phenomenon of social media is the fact that it's a social thing. There's a two-way conversation. This is social 101 that back it up. And this is how I introduce the concept to bands who are not being social in their social media is you really have to look at the way you talk to people online the same way you would talk to your friends. So if you were constantly calling up your friends and saying, "This is what I'm doing today and come to my show and click on my link and do this and do that," and like telling people what's going on in your life and all that stuff without ever actually engaging in a conversation, that friend's going to get pretty fucking annoyed with you.
Yeah. You're just as terrible as those Herbalife friends that are just like, even in real life, calling you up and being like, "Hey, you should try Herbalife." And then you're like, "Are you calling me fat? Like, what the fuck? Why am I getting the Herbalife calls and not fucking Jordan over there?"
Exactly. And this is the thing too, is that a lot of people might automatically think then, "Oh, am I supposed to start a conversation and just be like, 'Oh, hey, how are you?' to the masses?" And it's like, well, to a certain extent, yes, there's nothing wrong with asking people questions and trying to start or engage in a conversation. However, this is where, and you'll probably have a really good few examples for this, about sharing content that doesn't have to do with selling anything to them, because what would you do with your friends? You see something that you like that you think is really cool or something that you think a friend would like. What do? You
send them to them.
You send it to them or you share it.
Because social media is both about conversation, communication, and also about sharing. Right?
Yes, exactly.
There's like, those are the two kind of, there's about conversation, there's sharing, and there's creation. I feel like those are the 3 pillars of social media, right?
Exactly.
And by creation, there's definitely certain platforms that are more creation oriented. Like, for example, YouTube. YouTube is all about creation mostly, right? Mm-hmm. It's about you creating your own videos and posting them online. And then there's a conversation that occurs on the videos. Mm-hmm. But then there's other channels, platforms that are more about conversations, like Twitter. Twitter is all about that conversation happening 24/7. While Facebook lately, I feel like it's more about sharing as well. There's like a lot of push for video and all this kind of stuff, but there's also a lot of conversation happening on Facebook.
Yeah, there's a lot of conversation, but I find that Facebook is definitely gravitating towards sharing other people's content.
Yeah.
It's really a content-based website now.
Yeah, and that's why they're trying to push, they're pushing a lot of like groups right now. I don't know if you're a part of any groups on Facebook, but if you are, you get a lot of notifications from them because they really want people to be engaged and like talk and all that kind of stuff, so that then, they generate more content than is then shared all across. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of the 3 kind of actions that happen in social media. So what made you want to pick this topic, in the sense that, what are some of the things that you see in all these artists, because you've managed a lot of artists through your career. Mm-hmm. So what are some of the things that kind of, make you want to go, hey, let's talk about social media first?
Well, the main reason why, and I was actually thinking about this a lot today, is because I really feel that your personality on social media can have a huge, huge impact on growing and retaining an audience, for sure. Like, yes, I'll be completely honest. there are a lot of bands out there, and I'll be more specific. I love, love, love AWOL Nation. I love their music. I go to their shows. I listen to their albums. Not necessarily a huge fan of their social media. Don't go and follow it. So it's not the end all be all. I'm not going to be one of those marketing people that's like, you have to be on social media. However, if you look at it this way, there are other bands out there that I like even more because there's something about them that just attracts me. I gravitate towards their personalities, what they share on social. So an example of that is, for the longest time, I've been hearing a lot of bands that I work with or just people around me talking a lot about this band, Highly Suspect. And I listened to one or two of their songs and I was like, not really for me. But then I came across them on Twitter and I fell in love with their personality on Twitter.
They're hilarious.
They are hilarious. And they're just so real and raw and honest. And it's like, I would never get to see them on the street or meet them maybe one day in the future. But there's something about their personality that actually brought me full circle back to their music to listen to it again. And for whatever reason, I don't know if it's because I just listened to it again, but it was the social media that brought me back to their music. Now I like their music more than the first time I listened to them. And that's just one really simple, straight example of how social media can be a freaking game changer for whether or not people like your music.
I think you hit the nail right in the head. I like how you focus on the word personality a lot, because I think that's what what social media should be about when you're an artist and you're putting yourself out there, in the sense that, it's true sometimes, because what you're putting on social media is really who you are, right? And that made you, with these examples that you put out there, it made you fan of the people in the band rather than a fan of the band itself.
Yes.
And then as a result, you ended up becoming fan of the band. Because, to be honest, like, music, if an artist is just fine, but they're like an interesting person, you'll be much more into them than, the opposite example, right? Or it can be the thing that, that gets a lot of people to listen to your music, even if, your music might not be the most exciting, most different, or most, if you're doing something that you like, but it's not necessarily different or exciting in a musical sense, then it's your personality that's carrying you over, right? And I think that was a great example. Like, and it's always been like that with artists since day one. Another great example for me is, and it has nothing to do with social media. It has to do with like putting your personality out there. Blink-182. Everyone who was growing up and was a fan of Blink-182 knew who Mark, Tom, and Travis were, and knew like all the personalities of the three of them. You knew that Travis had a lot of tattoos and he doesn't talk. That, Tom believed in aliens and was a goofy guy. That Mark was also really funny. They would like trash talk each other on stage. And, if you put on the live albums, you would love the parts between songs where they would start, telling jokes about, stuff that probably nowadays wouldn't fly. But that was the thing that was cool about them. It was like the personality. And a lot of people fell in love with those personalities more than with the music. Because the music was great. I love the music. But for a lot of people, I know that for a lot of people, the music was just like, the difference between Blink-182 and, say, I don't know, Sum 41 or No Use for a Name. Like, it's so slight. It's so simple that it was really their personalities that really put them out there.
For sure. I'm actually really glad to use them as an example, because their live album was the precursor to what they would have been like on social media. And
exactly.
it's those live albums that really drew people in. Like, so many people I've heard say, I didn't really care about Blink-182 until I heard their live album, or until I went to a show and saw what they were all about. It's like, I wasn't even that huge of a fan until I saw them live, and I'm like, these guys are fucking hilarious.
Yeah, because you see them come out with a flaming fuck sign, and they're talking about having sex with their grandpas or something like that. And that had never been done before at that time, right?
Yeah.
And it's such a great way for them to put their personality out there.
Exactly. And you wouldn't have known that listening to a studio album.
Exactly.
So for every band, especially the ones in like the punk realm who are just like, well, I don't need to use social media. Blink-182 didn't need to use it. It's like, yeah, because the medium didn't really exist back then.
Yeah.
But they found a different way. They did it through live albums. They did it through live shows.
Yeah. If there was Instagram or Twitter at the time, they would have done the same thing. Same jokes, just different medium. Yeah. Same style, same personality, because that's who they were.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. So yeah, like thinking, and you just sort of started to touch on this, is the psychology of your fan is that if they like you as a person, they are predisposed to automatically like your music. So basically, again, it's not a 100% necessity that you use social media to get people to listen to your music. People will be driven to your music and they'll like it or they won't like it. However, if you reach them before they ever listen to your music and they like you, they will be automatically predisposed to like your music more when they actually listen to it. This is a fact. It's happened to me so many times, even to the point of taking the time to listen to somebody's music. If I've met them and I really, really like them, I will listen to their music and I will actually make an effort to like it more than I normally would. And sometimes it's just getting above the noise, getting the exposure to someone, or being exposed to someone so that they actually hear your music, and giving them enough of incentive to listen to it enough times before it finally clicks. Because that's another true thing too. It's very seldom that people will listen to something and automatically be in love with it, which is why radio, for instance, repeats things over and over and over. You have to hear it 10 times before you fall in love with it. So when people don't have time anymore and they're so overwhelmed with so much music coming at them, repetition really helps. So if someone likes you as a person, they're more likely to listen more than once because they want to like you. They have a reason to like your music because they already like you.
Yeah, it's like, and you see, I see this all the time where, like, you know, someone on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or social media or something, that they are kind of have a little bit of a following for something that's unrelated to music, suddenly say, oh, my first single ever, I'm going into music, check it out here. And boom, they have hundreds, thousands of likes and comments of their already existing fan base being like, this is amazing, oh, best song of the year and whatever, because they're already fans. So you have to, social media, I think this is the kind of point that we're trying to make. The best way you can use social media as an artist is to make people become fans of you and your personality, not of your music, because then that comes after. That comes naturally after. So if you're trying to use social media to make people fall in love with your music, it's gonna be an uphill battle, because everyone's trying to do the same thing, and no one, you know, you don't want to follow an account that all that it does is just talk about their own music. Like, I don't want to follow a musician that all they do is talk about, oh, new single, new song, listen here. No, I want more personality. I want more, you know? And it's evident when you're following like big established acts that you can see that their social media is run by like a social media team. Right? And it's not them putting their personality out there. And, it feels disingenuous. Those are not my favorite accounts.
Yeah, there's some massive artists that I've lost all respect for. And I remember I wrote about this, oh my God, years ago when sharing content and clickbait sites were a brand new thing. Used to be a huge fan of Bone Thugs and Harmony.
I don't know who that is.
I'm leaving.
And now this is the first part where you actually get to use a cable and leave him.
Oh my God. Okay. This classic rap group.
Okay, I'm not much of a rap guy.
Oh,
that
dude,
might be why.
Check them out; they're amazing.
Right.
So he used to be a huge fan of Bone Thugs and Harmony. They were totally pre-social media. They released a new album. Oh my God, I can't remember when it was, but it would have been probably 2011, 2012. And they clearly hired someone to do their Facebook, and they just shared so much completely irrelevant clickbait and have like millions and millions of fans. But even when you look at the engagement on those posts, it's so minuscule compared to their fans. And then you would even go through those comments and they'd be like, why the hell is Bone Thugs Harmony actually sharing this
Because you're just doing it for the numbers, right? To get good numbers rather than to actually build an engaged fan base.
Yeah, that's a team, like whatever they were getting paid to post all that content, that team, like ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like that's so stupid. They should all be fired. You're wasting your time and money because it did absolutely nothing to build the brand.
Yeah. And I think that's really telling of the year, right? You said 2011, 2012-ish.
Something like that,
Those are about the years when like a lot of social media was like, oh, numbers. And people weren't actually thinking about like quality of fan base engagement. Like it was more about, oh, you have 1 million followers. That's perfect. Instead of saying, well, are these million followers actual fans? Are they actually engaged? Do you actually know who I am? And are they listening to the music, right? It was more about just getting those numbers so you can get a record deal.
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
And I guess at the time that wasn't a strategy, but it definitely doesn't work like that.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's still a bit of a wild west because people don't get it, and that's why I feel like the basis of everything we talk about moving forward in this episode should center around understanding that social media is first a social activity.
Yeah.
And second, a media-based activity. It's like taking you and a bunch of friends hanging out and putting it on the internet.
Yep.
That's what it should look like.
Absolutely.
Period.
Yeah. So I guess it's safe to say that step one of kind of like the list of advices that we're giving out on this episode. Step one, you have to I think it's great to kind of take inventory of yourself and say, okay, what are things that I am into, that I am interested in, that are part of my personality? For example, you can say, let's say that, for example, you're really into baseball and you're really into we're from Toronto, so you're really into the Blue Jays and you know everything about the Blue Jays, or you write that down. You're also, I don't know, you cook on your own time, so you're really into cooking, you write that down. And these are things that not necessarily have to do with music, right? But things about yourself, and you take inventory from like the least interesting things to the things that are the most important to you about yourself. And then you kind of have to do the same thing about your audience. I think that's also something that you have to do, or like the people that you think you want to, that are interested in your music. What do they like as well? And then trying to find parallels there, right? And that kind of stuff, and even things that you find funny. For example, like maybe you have a very specific sense of humor and you write that down. Like, oh, I find existential memes really funny. And, you kind of start adding those things into that.
Exactly. And being very, very careful not to turn that into a full-blown strategy where you go and you spend your day looking for content. It's like, no, you be natural about it. However you consume content as, naturally is how you should share it. Yeah. And just start thinking about, like, what do I share with my friends? What do I talk about with my friends? And of course, it's up to you to determine how personal or impersonal you want to be, but look within that range and share from there. And that's the one way to guarantee authenticity. Like, that's what authenticity really is. If you have to sit there and think, like, how to be authentic, it's like, you are authentic. You are an authentic human being.
Buy my self-help book, How to Be Authentic in the Age of Fake News. Yeah. And that's exactly it. And, and you can do it in many ways that are both you putting yourself out there and also being conversational. Like, for example, going back, I'm going to use the baseball example again. Let's say you're on your band's Twitter and there's a game going on tonight, and one of the people on your feed says, I don't know, oh, we're up by 2 runs or something, 2 touchdowns or whatever. I don't watch baseball. And you can like quote retweet them and say like, yes, let's go Blue Jays, with like, emojis and stuff, or just reply at them and start a conversation about that baseball thing. And then that's it. That's what you do in that specific scenario. You're not being like, yeah, if you like baseball, listen to my song. It's not about that. It's more about engaging. That person then feels like that's cool. This person is reaching out to me and we're sharing a special moment, right?
Yep, exactly.
And those are the kind of things, those feelings that you want to leave behind in the people that are following you, your followers. Say like, oh, I just had a really cool, special social moment with this.
Exactly. And that's the thing. It's totally subconscious. Because like you could sit there and think, well, like, what's me retweeting about a baseball game I watched going to do for my band? It's like, no, stop thinking that way. Yeah. And think about the fact that it's almost planting a small subconscious seed. It's like relating to a friend when you talk about baseball together. It's like if your bond is based on talking about baseball, then that's enough for you to understand that talking about baseball on Twitter is a way that your fans might feel like, oh, here's another thing that I'm connecting with. Or even someone who, if you tweeted at your favorite baseball team or replied to a comment or replied to one of their tweets, that's how you can start finding people that you connect with, and they can be like, oh, this is actually a really cool band. Like, there's so many ways that you can indirectly build value with the general public by doing small things like that. And it seems like it can be inconsequential, but when done consistently enough, means so much more and will pay off so much more in the long run than constantly blasting people with your own music and even ads about your own music.
Yeah, because if all you're talking about is your own music, then you're not an interesting account to follow.
Exactly.
You should be kind of multifaceted in that sense, right? Like,
exactly. Now here's an amazing example that we were just talking about earlier today, that okay, I'm not telling everyone to go out and do this kind of stuff, but this is the natural way that having an outside interest and sharing that from your band account can actually lead to something incredible. So if any of you guys have been following, if any of you guys are friends or fans of the Arkells, what they recently did, and yes, they're a big, pretty mid-level band, but they have been all over the Olympics. They're so into it. They're tweeting about it, talking about it every day. And then they decided last week that they were going to tweet saying, oh, we need to go to Korea and perform this. They posted a video or something, and they tagged Air Canada. Well, Air Canada saw that and fucking sent them to the Olympics. And now they're in Korea right now.
Yeah, they replied with something like, pack your bags, boys, or something like that.
Yeah,
right?
it's just like, I think we can make that happen. What do you think? Can you guys be ready for Wednesday? And they're just like, what? Like, they were just so blown away. Like, I'm sorry. If that was all staged, bravo. Because that's the best stage thing I've ever seen in my life. But I really don't think it was.
Yeah.
I think that was so far beyond what anyone on the Arkells team could have imagined would be possible.
Yeah.
And that's all it took.
Well, and it could have happened to anyone. You don't even need a massive marketing team. A great example, I forget his name at this point, but I know now he has a great following. The Nuggets for, what's this guy, Carson or something like that? This is the kid that tweeted about he wanted like free nuggets for life from Wendy's. And Wendy's was like, oh, if you get 5 million retweets, we'll give you free nuggets for life. And now the kid on Twitter, he has like a massive following, and now that's an asset for him.
Yeah.
That he can use. But that happened organically. It's not like he had a plan with Wendy's that he was gonna do this. He reached out to Wendy's with a joke, saying, "Oh, how many retweets for free nuggets for life?" And then it turned into this massive thing because Wendy's decided to play along. Right?
Exactly.
Just like how Air Canada decided to play along with the Arkells. So you never know. If you don't stop, you just keep trying. It wasn't like this kid was trying to advertise anything at the moment. He just wanted free nuggets.
Exactly. That's the thing, is that there is an element of luck involved in this. But, it's the best social media examples are usually a stroke of luck. And we'll talk about your stroke of luck recently too. But that's the thing, is that you actually have to do it. And you have to be natural about it. Like, I guarantee you that kid wasn't sitting there thinking, how am I going to get a ton of followers on social media? Oh, I'm going to strategize and I'm going to use Wendy's, who, by the way, their Twitter is the best thing that ever happened to the planet. Please follow Wendy's on Twitter. They're amazing.
So funny. The way they roast their own customers, I love it. It's the best. It's the best.
The way they... Oh God, I can't handle it. They're so good.
We've lost Vanessa.
I went down the black hole of like reading Wendy's tweets for 2 hours the other night. It was so good. They're so good, the way they roast McDonald's. Oh my God, it kills me.
I can't blame you.
Anyways, so good. But yeah, it's so natural. Like, who knows what the hell was going through this kid's head when he decided to tweet at Wendy's, but it worked because he was going above and beyond, sitting there and trying to think about a million different crafty ways. Like, it's really natural, and it takes practice to be natural.
Yeah, and it's about, looking at opportunities and putting yourself out there and just interacting with the medium. A great example is also like YouTubers that started out in YouTube when YouTube wasn't a thing, when it wasn't like, oh, I'm a YouTuber. That wasn't a thing yet. And then they just put out videos of them like either vlogging through their day or playing video games or making like, I don't know, epic mealtime kind of stuff. And then they turned that into careers, and then a lot of them went into music after. Because turns out they were also musicians. Or even Viners that then went into music, right? Because they were just playing with the medium, being themselves, putting themselves out there, and they then turned into a musical career.
Exactly.
Because you already had an audience. So a lot of like social media is about audience growth through that, through like knowing how you want to represent yourself in social media, and in that sense, without pre-planning it too much, more of like taking inventory of yourself and saying, okay, these are the things that I like, this is what I'm going to be talking about, and also knowing what your audience wants to kind of be engaged and talked about too.
Exactly. I mean, step one starts with taking inventory for sure, and a lot of it is dumb luck, but it starts with just being real. If you're real and you're thinking about ways that you want to put out content that you're having fun with, then that's when dumb luck will really be on your side.
Yeah, there's that way you're relying a little bit less on luck It's you still need that luck to kind of spark that fire. But the more you know about yourself, what you're saying, what you're doing, what your audience wants, and what you want, and those, what are those points where you connect with your audience? It's like going on a date. It's like, when a date is going well, when a date is not going well, right?
Well, most people do, at least.
well, I hope you do. If you're listening and you're going on dates, learn how to read the room. But yes, it's like, that's a great example. If you're on a date and it's like you start just by asking simple questions, and then when you find things in common, then you start like, it's like you get that momentum and you keep it going. Right? Same thing with social media. You find those things that you have in common with your audience, and then exploit those, I guess, in this context. It's like you really want to like establish a connection.
Exactly.
And make sure that this is not just a one-off date.
Exactly. And I think this rolls over into the next thing that I think we should talk about, which is first you have to get the idea of what and how you're going to share down, and then figure out how to appropriately capitalize on one, any success that you have with those posts, and two, understanding the platform and how to best optimize your content for that platform. Because I find that, there's a lot of really good information out there that say, oh, you should always use hashtags on Instagram, and oh, your Facebook post should always come with a picture and they should be this short and all of that stuff. And it's like, yes, those are good guidelines, but it's like, let me think of a good example here.
It's like finding out what goes where.
It's
in
like
the sense of,
it's like having the blueprints to build a really nice house and then trying to build it with foam.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you have to have the right materials too. So first have the materials and then understand how to build the house.
It's like, how we were talking on the pilot about burgers and burger shops? It's like looking at the recipe of a burger and just doing that. Instead of, filling your bags with potatoes, like we said. Yes, you gotta have a burger, that's for sure, but you gotta have that pizzazz, that's extra, your personality, your own touch, right? To the equation there. And it also depends on understanding what goes where, what works where better, and other things like, what works on Instagram might not work on Twitter. What works on Twitter might not work on Facebook, right?
Yeah.
So understanding also the different platforms and how are the same. I do not like when bands, their Instagram is just the same as their Facebook. Their Facebook is the same as their Twitter, and their Twitter is the same as their Instagram, right? Because then there's no excuse to follow them in the three parts, in the three areas. And I'm not going to say, okay, hate is like a strong word, but it's much more engaging when something is going on Twitter and something different is going on Instagram and something different is going on Facebook. Because then I feel like I need to be connected with these artists everywhere.
Exactly.
Because I feel like if I'm not following on Instagram, I'm missing out on a piece of the story, of their own personal story as a person, right?
Yes.
And it's like, so I got to make sure that I follow them on Instagram. I got to make sure that I'm on their Twitter. I got to make sure that, I subscribe to their YouTube and all that. Like, you want to make it so that every platform per se, it's kind of a piece of the puzzle. So maybe when you took inventory of yourself, maybe your baseball talk is mostly on Twitter. But that stuff doesn't really go to your Facebook, right?
Yeah.
And maybe your Instagram, you're doing like stories where you take questions through the day and you post them on your stories. And you're like, somebody asked me about, this, and or what amps do I use, or whatever question that people ask you, or some questions that you might just come up with yourself, like, oh, I saw someone online talking about this, here are my thoughts. So then Instagram might be your own little thought story or something like that, and then Facebook might be more, something different as well, more like hype marketing and all that kind of stuff. But it's about knowing what goes where and what works well everywhere, kind of having, you want to be authentic, but also have a little bit of an underlying strategy of knowing what works best for every medium.
Exactly. And the one thing, this is a big no matter what, it never works and don't do it, is don't connect your damn accounts. I do not want to see your Instagram pictures showing up on Facebook, and I sure as hell do not want to see your Facebook posts showing up on Twitter.
Yep.
Just don't do it.
Yep.
Just, you lazy ass. If you don't want to use one of the platforms and you don't think you're good at it, and
Don't
you don't want to
half-ass it.
share,
Just don't use it.
Just don't do it.
Yeah.
Exactly. If you're not good at conversation on Twitter, just don't do it. If you're not good at taking nice pictures on Instagram, just don't do it. I'd rather you not be on the platform at all than pushing really annoying content. It is annoying. Yeah. I'm sorry. When I'm on Facebook and I see an Instagram post and it's got 400 fucking hashtags in the description, just don't do it.
Yeah.
Just please,
especially
please,
when you can
please don't do it.
You can repurpose the same content and use it effectively in other platforms. Like nothing's stopping you from using the same picture to, you know, make a funny tweet or like post it on Facebook like accordingly and tag the photographer and maybe make a longer post talking about the story that happened when you were taking that picture or something like that. Nothing's stopping you from doing that. It's just laziness, like I said. It's just, I'll just set it up. Bzz, bzz, bzz. Like accounts that are run like that on social media usually don't do well.
No.
And like you said, if you're going to half-ass it, then just don't do it.
Exactly.
And that's why, you know, when a good thing to do if you're in a band, more than anything, if you're in a band, give one channel to one member, right? So let, you know, for example, let the lead singer do Facebook, let the drummer do Instagram, let the bass player do, you know, I don't know, Snapchat if the band has a Snapchat or something.
Yeah, use the platforms that you guys already use naturally.
Exactly, and just kind of make it like a little bit of a personality thing, right? And then it's like, hey, man, here, you control the band's Twitter and, you know, just be yourself there and, you know, make it so that they become fans of you as a Twitter person and then take it from there.
Exactly. And if you want to start using a platform and you don't use any social media, well, I think that's just weird.
Yeah, I don't know if that exists.
But say, for instance, if you really want to start using Instagram, but you're not really sure how, you can have an account, but just browse for a while. Follow your friends, follow influencers and bands that you really like, and just watch for a little while. Watch and learn. And when you see the way it works and how it works, then it'll be a lot easier to put out something that is relevant. The thing is, too, is that... How do I say this? I lost it. Okay, we'll edit that part out.
And I think you're right in the sense that everyone's very excited when they get on social media to start talking, to start saying, hey, me. And I get it, especially if you have something coming out or something like that. Sometimes you gotta pause for a minute and say, okay, but what are the people that you're most likely interested in, the profiles that you think are the coolest and the best, they're probably not being me all the time. So that's also another thing you can do after, you know, taking inventory of yourself and after establishing a little bit of an underlying strategy and making sure that your content is up to par, is also looking at the accounts that you like, even if they're not musicians. And say, why do I like their accounts? Why do I think their tweets are funny? Why do I think their Instagram's pictures are cool? Why am I always looking at their story? Why am I whatever, right? And then you answer those questions and then you start understanding what it really makes social media interesting. It's not the constant sales pitch. That's not what makes social media interesting. That's what people hate about social media.
Exactly.
It's the personalities that people are putting themselves out there. And you'll find those. I bet that whatever, you know, if you're listening to this podcast, whatever your personal favorite accounts on social media are not the ones that are always talking about themselves.
Yeah.
That are not always trying to sell you something.
Yeah, or at least not always talking about themselves, but at least entertaining you in the process. Even if they're entertaining you with videos that they made, videos about them, pictures of them, that's entertaining you.
Yeah.
And this is my next point is... So what happens when you have a successful post or a series of successful posts? That's not the end all be all. How do you capitalize on that? How do you use engagement to further engage your audience or further grow it when you do have a couple of posts that have done really well or even maybe one that's gone mildly viral? What do you do then?
Well, it's obviously you have to be pretty genuine when, you know, no one's ready for a post to blow up, especially if it's your first one. Like, this is blowing up. What do I do? And there's many things you can do. One thing that you can always do, you know, and you see this on Twitter all the time, especially when I think Twitter is a sort of medium where random growth just suddenly happens, while Instagram and Facebook is kind of like great gradual growth with your stuff, right? Like no one says, oh, my Facebook post suddenly blew up. It usually doesn't happen as much as it happens on Twitter. The thing to do is just follow up. You know, you leave another message saying, while it's blowing up, you reply to your own same tweet and say, hey guys, if you're enjoying this kind of content, I always post stuff like this. Make sure to drop me a follow. And you can even link to some other stuff. Here's some other tweets like this that I've made. I'm still not selling you on my mixtape. I'm not posting my SoundCloud. I'm not, right? It's more about, hey, you resonated with this post for some reason. There's more, right?
Yeah.
and kind of introduce it like that way.
Exactly. Get further involved in the conversation. Oh my God, it would kill me so much if there was, and I think there's been a few examples of this lately. You have one example, which we still haven't heard about yet, but if a band posts something, say for instance, there's actually a band that I love from the East Coast called the Town Heroes. They're absolutely hilarious guys, and you don't really see all too much of it on social. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. And they videotaped themselves watching the Olympics figure skating, and they overdubbed it with the most hilarious commentary ever.
Oh my God.
Unfortunately, like this went viral overnight on Facebook, but then the Olympics took it down because they were recording. It's copyrighted. But they have clips of it that are now on Instagram and Twitter and doing really well. And and they didn't do this, which is great. But what would have killed me is if all of a sudden they have all these views and all these comments and retweets, if they went on there and followed up and said, hey guys, here's a link to our new album. Like, fuck off. Like, that's not the way to do it.
Exactly.
So I'm glad that when things like that happen, the thing to do is not to try and immediately sell someone. That's just wrong. Just don't do it. But you did something that was really smart because you recently had a tweet that started going crazy. So
I think it's time to, after the break, we'll talk about how overnight I got almost 500,000 impressions on one tweet. So Vanessa, do you know what Guess Who is? Have you ever played Guess Who?
Yes, I love that game.
Yeah? Mm-hmm. Okay, so you know Guess Who. Do you know about competitive Guess Who?
No.
Me neither. I learned about that this week. So here's what happened. I put out a tweet the other night where I'm actually, you know what? I'm gonna pull it up so I can actually read it, give you the text of it.
Okay.
And it goes like this. I have it right here. I'm just reading right from the tweet. It says, someone on the Melee Hell group made an actual tier list for Guess Who characters based on the actual data. Holy. And it has 3 pictures on it. And right now it is standing at 3,099 retweets and 6,440 likes. That's a lot. That's obviously the most successful tweet I've ever made in my life.
Mm.
What the fuck, right?
Yeah.
What happened there? It's crazy. It's a tweet made on my A Dog Named Bob account, which is an account that I use for the music that I put out. So it's pretty exciting to have that kind of, engagements and following and all that kind of stuff on my own tweet. So I can tell you some of the stats that come out of that. But first, I'll kind of tell you, it's weird to go viral. It's funny because you can kind of start putting the pieces together and you realize that it's a lot of luck, but a lot of like striking a chord with like the right people, with the right content and all that. So first I'll explain how the tweet came about and to explain what the tweet actually means, right? So as I mentioned on the pilot, I'm really into competitive Smash Brothers, right? One of the competitive Smash Brothers that is really famous on the scene is called Smash Brothers Melee, which is the one for GameCube. I'm a big fan of the scene. I follow all these figures on Twitter, on Facebook, and all that kind of stuff. There's this very famous/infamous group on Facebook called Melee Hell for Smash Brothers Melee, where it's like a shit posting group, like just memes and trolling and all this kind of stuff going on all day. I'm on my Facebook, minding my own business, and I see this post on Melee Hell of a guy saying, oh, I actually ran the data for all the characters on Guess Who. And I ranked them up on a tier list of from best to worst. So you have like the S tiers, like the super tier, all the way to the F tier, like the worst characters to pick. Yeah. And he showed the data on how he did it. He had like a spreadsheet and all that kind of stuff. And I thought that is the most hilarious thing I've ever seen in my life. So I took a screenshot and posted it, making sure to, credit the person that made it and posted it on Twitter. I wasn't thinking much about it, right? Because I wasn't even thinking that it was going to blow up. So I post on Twitter and I say, oh my God, someone on Melee Hell actually created a tier list for Guess Who characters. That's the most ridiculous thing because, why would you? Why would you create? Because it's really common to create character tier lists for fighting games, right?
Right.
It's like this character is arguably the best character because he has the most strong attacks, the stronger attacks. It moves the fastest, etc., right? So it's very common to have like tier lists. But for a game for Guess Who, it's like, because it's obviously not a competitive game. Nobody fucking cares. So it's really funny. So I post that, and I let it be. It gets like 1 or 2 likes, whatever. All right. Whatever. Turns out Melee Hell themselves, they have a Twitter account. What I'm assuming that happened is that they probably have like a TweetDeck or a Hootsuite or something like that, where they saw the post come up because I used the words Melee Hell. I didn't tag them. I didn't use a hashtag. Nothing like that. So they, quote, retweeted it, just saying hashtag important. And then from there, a couple of people on the Smash Bros. Scene that follow the Melee Hell account started like sharing it and retweeting it, right? And I was like, oh, that's awesome. My phone starts like vibrating like crazy. Like it wouldn't shut up. My girlfriend's like, what the fuck is going on with your phone? It's like, I don't know. Because we were like talking. And then when I looked at my phone, it's like, oh, I'm blowing up on Twitter right now. And then there was another crucial point when the tweet was at about 800 retweets and 1,000 likes, where Hungrybox, who is the current #1 player in the world for Smash Bros. Melee, retweeted the tweet.
Oh my god!
And he has
so exciting.
14,000 followers on Twitter from all kinds of like not only people who follow Smash Bros. But people who follow fighting games in general or people who follow gaming in general. And from there, I got retweeted by YouTubers and everything because all these people follow him, and that was from there I got to where I'm at, like 3,000 retweets at this point and almost 500,000. That's like 500,000 impressions on Twitter in 2 days. That was 2 nights ago. So that's kind of how it happened. What I did, the next morning as I saw that it was blowing up on day 2, and admittedly I did this kind of late. I did this on day 2. Should have done this on day 1. But hey, it's kind of like, I'm blowing up. I don't know what to do. But I did follow up on the tweet and I wrote, hey, if you like this kind of content, drop me a follow, all that kind of stuff. And then I said, oh, here's a few other tweets that I've made that I think are really funny. I didn't say anything about the fact that I make music or anything like that. And now those tweets, slowly are kind of gaining a little bit of traction. Maybe one of them will blow up again or something. Who knows? We'll see. And maybe if I hadn't done that earlier, it would have gotten more traction even. Especially if I did it before Hungrybox retweeted me, right? Because a lot of the tweets that are replying to that thread are getting a ton of likes, a ton of comments, right? People who are just like making a funny comment back, they're getting like 50 to 60 likes and a bunch of retweets, right? So it was really interesting to see. That's how that all happened. And now it's kind of plateaued. That's where it's standing right now. But, it only takes one other person to pick it up with a big following and just it starts all over again, right?
Yeah.
So it's pretty interesting. Going viral on Twitter.com.
So exciting.
It was kind of nuts.
Yeah.
I learned a couple of things that are pretty interesting about Twitter. Like random things. Like, for example, at the beginning, my phone would not stop vibrating. But then it would only vibrate and notify me if someone with more followers than I have liked or retweeted the tweet. If it was someone with fewer followers, like the notification would still be like inside the app.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't buzz my phone. It wouldn't send a notification to my phone.
Right.
Which was pretty weird. I think that's kind of odd, right?
That's interesting. Well, I guess they probably had to build something in like that for people who do have huge followings, right? So that when they retweet something or they tweet something and they get like 40,000
their phone doesn't overheat and blow up.
Could you imagine just right off the table and it's gone?
Yeah.
Oh man.
I found that out. I found out that Twitter will only show you up to the last 100 people who retweeted or liked your tweet. So if I go like, who retweeted my tweet? It only shows me the 100 most recent. Oh. It doesn't show me the full list. Ah. So it's kind of hard to kind of go back on your steps and figure out like, oh, these are all the big accounts that actually retweeted it. Because I can't. It had to be in real time. I had to be like paying attention.
Ah, okay.
That's tricky.
You gotta stay on that. Yeah, you gotta stay on it then. That's interesting.
I didn't know that one. Yeah, those are like silly things that you figure out while that the whole thing is going on. It gave me a bump on followers, of course. It gave me, at a dog named Bob on Twitter. Of course, it gave me a bump on followers, tons of engagement. Someone posted the tweet on Reddit as a link to my tweet. So I found that out today because I do a lot of Googling when something's happening. I like to Google a lot. So I do a lot of Googling, and I Googled it, and I found this Reddit link that someone just posted it on Reddit being like, oh, someone built a character tier list for Guess Who. That's really silly. And I'm assuming a lot of retweets and likes came from that Reddit link.
Reddit is amazing. I don't understand it. I don't use it. But there is something incredible about that community.
Yeah.
Years ago, it would have been probably 5 years ago now, a band that I was working with went viral on YouTube, starting with somebody posting their YouTube video on Reddit.
Yeah.
And they got 1 million views in a week.
I think it's even worth, I think that Reddit is an underused channel or platform for musicians. And I think it would be good to have maybe not a full episode, but a section of an episode one day to talk about Reddit and things that you can do on Reddit, especially if we're going to be talking about how to reach out to new people, net new people.
Yeah.
Less about building your existing audience or engaging with your existing audience.
Oh, that's good. I like that.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're coming up to almost an hour. So I feel like we should wrap this up with a rapid fire do's and don'ts.
Yeah, do's and don'ts. I don't know. Okay, let's start. Give me a do, and then I'll do another do. Then you'll do a don't. Then I'll do a don't.
Oh, I had a whole bunch.
Yeah. Oh, before we get to that, actually, just to wrap up the whole Twitter story.
Okay.
You know what? And you'll say, well, Martin, what do you get out of this? You didn't promote your music. You didn't link to your music. What the F? Well, not only did I get a bump in followers, I grow my audience, got a lot of people to see my tweet in the sense that a lot of those people, if I have another tweet that kind of gets a few retweets, they'll know, oh, this is the same guy that tweeted about the Guess Who thing that I loved. Let's retweet it again. It kind of creates a brand awareness component.
Yeah.
And also, now I have a pinned tweet on my profile. You can pin a tweet to the top of your profile. That's 100% organic. Looks super good because it has a ton of retweets and likes on it. And it's not a sales pitch. It's not, it's kind of a little bit tasteless going into a profile and the pinned tweet is like, check this out, buy this, buy my new shirt, listen to my new album, yada yada. Instead of an interesting tweet that it's like, oh, this is what I decided to introduce myself with. So now I decided to introduce myself with an interesting piece of content that a lot of the people who are into gaming and music, which are two of the big things that I'm into, will resonate. It will resonate with, because everybody knows Guess Who, and a lot of the people, and I'm always tweeting about competitive Smash Brothers. So a lot of the people that follow me and are into my community, my niche, they know about competitive Smash Brothers. So it kind of goes full circle there.
For sure, and that's the thing too. It goes full circle to picking something that you're interested in, sharing that, and there is a shit ton of data telling you that this post is really, really engaging. So you start with that. You lead with it, which is great.
Yeah, 20% engagement rate according to Twitter. That's pretty high.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, that's pretty fucking
amazing.
High. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, cool.
Do's and don'ts.
I have more don'ts than I have do's.
Oh, okay. I'll start with the do. Just to make it positive. Do. Put yourself out there. Talk about things that are not your music, that are not your band. Talk about yourself and the things that you're into. Talk about the things that you're interested in. Don't talk about yourself. Don't say, I am interested in baseball. Say, this is a cool baseball thing that I found, for example, right?
Okay. I got a do. It can also be a don't, but I'll make it a do. Do reply to people's comments and questions. Always, always, always. Don't ignore them.
Yeah. I got into the habit of replying, especially on Facebook, because in Facebook is where I feel like it's the hardest to get comments out of sometimes, to reply saying, thank you, I appreciate you, thanks for the love, or even asking a question or follow up on what they're saying.
Yep.
To make sure that it's a conversation.
Exactly.
All right. I don't stop with the low quality memes on Instagram. Instagram is not a platform where, memes can do great on Instagram. Yes. But that's low quality content. Stop it. No, be more interesting than that. That's the low hanging fruit. Anyone can do memes. There's millions of pages doing memes. There's meme pages already a million times better than you at posting memes. But you know who's the best person in the world at telling your own story? You're the person that it's the best in the world at telling your own story. So don't try to be a meme page, because there are meme pages that are way better than you already. Mm-hmm. You don't want to be a meme page. Be a page about... your profile on Instagram or any other profile on social media should be about your story, the things that you like, the content that you're interested in sharing with your audience. Because if you become a meme page, there's already pages that are doing much better than that. That's a saturated market. Slow quality content. It's not interesting.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was talking about earlier with Bone Thugs and Harmony and a bunch of other. Tommy Chong is doing it now, and I think even Nelly's doing it now. Tyrese is doing it. It's just bad. Don't do it. Okay, don't put a hashtag in the middle of a sentence. God damn it. If you're going to use a hashtag, put it at the end of the actual post content itself.
Twitter just make the tweets longer. You can just put it at the end.
Yeah, and don't even use hashtags on Twitter anymore if you don't have to. You can search for keywords without having them to be hashtagged. Instagram hashtags are still really valuable, but don't use it in the middle of the sentence. It breaks it up, it makes it hard to read, and it just looks bad.
You know what? Just to piss you off, this episode will be called the hashtag social media episode.
I'm leaving. Quit.
Just to piss you off.
I'm taking my mile-long XLR cable with me.
I'll leave it plugged in, but I'm going to get on the TTC. Yeah. Another diversify. Learn learn what kind of content works on different social platforms. Not the same content will work on every social platform. And if you diversify, you make your audience feel like they're getting a different side of you on every platform. So it makes for a more compelling case to follow you on Twitter, to also follow you on Instagram, and to also follow you on Facebook, right? Because they feel like they're getting a different slice of the same pie on every one of them. It's not like, if you're posting the same things on Twitter and Facebook, then you're making it so that a person that has both Twitter and Facebook can just only follow you on one and be happy. Why not maximize that same follower and say, hey, you like my content here on Facebook, when on Twitter I'm doing some other different stuff that it's kind of like this. I'm into that. Now you made 2 followers out of 1 person, right? So diversify and maximize your audience.
Absolutely. Do pay attention to your insights once a month. Or if something blows up, go into your insights, your Twitter and specifically Facebook, and take a look at those insights. Export them if you want some really, really detailed stuff, because you might be surprised at what you find. It's not just a matter of how many people watched your video, liked your post, commented on it, shared it, whatever. If you go into your insights, you can find some really valuable data that will show you that something, even though something doesn't have a ton more likes or comments, something about it you can see in the reach versus engagement, or the impressions, or just the time of day. Look into that stuff and adjust slightly accordingly. Optimize your content and use your insights to do it.
Just because you mentioned the insights, and as a marketer, I can tell you right now, it's all about getting that engagement. And I'm telling you because I know a lot of people, one of the reasons that they want to build a social media profile and a following is because that looks good. It looks good to new people that are visiting the profile. It looks good to potential labels, to potential show bookers, to potential, it just opens up doors having a strong social media presence. What a lot of people, savvy people, are looking at right now, they're not looking at your 1 million followers. They're looking at your most recent posts and seeing, out of that 1 million followers, what's the engagement rate here? So let's say you have 1 million followers on your page, but you only get 20 to 30 likes on each post, then they know your content is crap and that your following is not a hardcore following and that you're not getting good engagement.
Yep.
They would rather go with an account that has, let's say, 5,000 followers and gets between 500 and 1,000 likes on each post. Because that means it's a super highly engaged audience. That's between 10 to 20% engagement. That's huge. That's a huge engagement rate.
Yep.
10 to 20%, that's like the golden numbers. you're rarely ever going to go over 10 or 20%. If you do, call me. I want to know what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
That's the thing is, even on like a much smaller scale, if I see a band that has 1,000 likes, but all of their posts have between 50 to 100 likes and a bunch of comments, I care more about that than seeing a band that has 3,500 likes and only 1 or 2 likes.
Yeah, because then you know
post.
it's a weak audience. It's not a strong audience. So
Exactly.
people are looking a lot at quality of audiences rather than the size of them.
Exactly.
So when you're looking at the insights, this kind of to wrap it back up to what you were saying. When you're looking at the insights, look at the posts that are having those high engagement rates and say, oh, that's the kind of content people are engaging with. And start kind of, make a mental note or an actual note and say, hey, when I posted about, I posted about, I wrote up a post telling a story of how I lost my luggage once. That really resonated with people. Okay, so people want to know about my personal stories. For example, that can be the example there. And then okay, so for my next post, I know I have a picture of that time, I don't know, like that time that I ran into this celebrity at a record shop. So I can make a post about it. And then it goes from there. And then now you know that's a high engagement content. And you'll find other opportunities and other things. Always be testing, as they say. Always be testing.
Exactly. Try new things. Oh, I have a big don't. I remember one. I remember it. Okay. Do not, under any circumstances, ever blame, bitch at, or guilt trip your audience for not engaging with your sales pitch content. Oh my God. I cannot hate you faster. Like that is like, it's the opposite of making me want to come to your event or buy your stuff or stream your thing. If you come out there and you complain that people aren't doing it, or if you try to guilt trip people by saying, I know you're out there, please, 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 please. Just, oh my God, it is like repellent. It just makes me not want to do it even more. Maybe that's just me, but there is something so off-putting about acting like that. It's just like, if you act like that in person, I'm just like, oh, fuck's sake.
Yeah. Keep your cool, basically, with your audience, Your audience is there because they like you. So if you start like lashing out at your audience, big no. No guilt tripping, no like scummy stuff, no clickbait, nothing like that. Have fun. It's a really social media is it's still young as a concept. Social media is still young. There's still many things that haven't been done. Have fun. Be interesting. I think that's a big one. Be interesting. However, whatever you define as interesting. If you yourself look at your own profile and don't think it's interesting, then get thinking. Sit down with a notepad and the rest of your band and say, like, what can we do here? Take it as seriously as writing songs and making albums. Because if you're writing songs and making albums, but you have no audience to release that music to, then what the fuck are you doing? You're wasting your time. Stop, half-assing social media, because it's going to take you nowhere. And then you can still put a lot of time into social media and still be half-assing it, and that means you're wasting your time. So make sure that the time that you do dedicate to social media, you're being interesting, thoughtful, and from a strategy standpoint, you're being smart about it.
Exactly. Half-assing social media, but putting out a lot of posts is the equivalent of recording a demo in your bathroom, sending it to a label executive, and them saying, this is not good enough. And so you send them 10 more bathroom recordings. Like, it doesn't work. It's just not going to work.
You didn't go back to the drawing board.
Exactly. Exactly. You didn't put effort in. Okay, which leads me to another one. Just because of the way social media and media consumption is moving towards, when you look at things like Snapchat and Instagram stories and stuff like that, do take the time to learn how to edit video. Play with it. Look at the videos that you really love and see the way people cut edits and use video editing software, which are really simple to use, easy apps to create some fun stuff. It is so fucking easy. So easy. And if you just try it, if you don't like it and you can't figure it out, fine. But at least
someone
give it a
else in
shot.
your band will.
Exactly. It's so easy.
I personally think if you have the funds, share the cost with the rest of the band. It makes it easier. Get Creative Suite. learn Photoshop, learn Adobe Premiere, learn, if you can, learn Illustrator, learn like the basic ones. Especially, I think like key ones, for sure, 100% learn Photoshop and learn Adobe Premiere, at least the basics of those two tools. Because that will upgrade you from just someone on social media to like actually quality content. You can edit video at a professional, like make professional looking video. Adobe Premiere is used by professionals everywhere. And Photoshop can be used for everything from social media banners to posters to, you know, editing whatever you want to do, your professional pictures, because there's a lot of content that has to be done via pictures. Learn those two tools, even if it's just the basics.
Totally. But even just to get started, there are so many apps that will teach you how to do things. Like even when I was in school for digital and social media, we learned, like for me, I was all over Premiere and Photoshop, and it seemed really overwhelming and complicated to put together a simple Instagram post or a simple Vine, because that's how long ago I was in school. But learning how to use simple things like Viva Video, you can learn how to edit a really cute, fun, short video using an app like Viva Video. It's so freaking easy. Start there. And then if you start to have bigger and better ideas that require a little bit more professional, detailed touch, then go for it.
Start a podcast with your friend. Learn how to edit audio.
And use two microphones.
Right? That's how it is. I think that's a really good note on how to finish it. Do's and don'ts. Kind of to wrap up this episode on social media. Speaking of social media, we now officially have social media.
Oh, right.
We haven't published it at the time of the recording, but it will be out when this episode is out. So make sure to follow us on Twitter at The Offstage, Facebook.com/TheOffstage, and Instagram.com/TheOffstage. We're on those 3 platforms. We'll be posting stuff. We'll have to develop our own strategy as well. Say, right, who takes care of what? What do we talk about? What on each and all that kind of stuff. And just follow us there. And of course, our DMs will be open. Or just leave us comments everywhere where you ask us questions, and we'll, the ones that we can address on a simple, quick message, we'll do it. And the ones that really pick our interest or that we really want to dissect and talk about a lot, we'll bring it up on an episode and kind of just, really hammer those down.
Good job.
Good job.
Good job.
All right, so this has been episode number 1 of the Offstage podcast. I am your host, Martin.
And I am your co-host, Vanessa.
Oh, you're also a host. We're both hosts.
Co-host.
We're both co-hosts.
We're co-hosts.
Yeah. All right, I'm your co-host, Martin. You're my co-host, Vanessa. And enjoy your day. Here's some music.
High five.
High five.